Jai Shri Ram. By the grace of Lord Sri Krishna, Lord Sri Jagannath, Lord Sri Ram, we'll start the story of Rāmāyaṇa, Part 1 Betrayed, Chapter 4 The Trial of Strength. In the previous chapter, it was explained how Ram was protected the sacrificial ceremony from the different Yakshas. If you not watch that video, please go to the chapter 3 video and then you will get the clarity of chapter 4. The chapter 4 is mentioned like this. A beautiful sunrise over the sun herald the dawn. The sound of birds and forest animals filled the air as the sage and the princess bathed in the river. After performing their morning rituals and prayers, the boys came before Vishwamitra. Here the boys is Sri Ram and Sri Lakshman. The sage pointed to the river and said, "Here we should cross this river and make our way northward to the Gangas." The boys looked around and saw nearby a line of sages holding their water pots and staffs, wading through the water at some shallow point. Rama and Lakshmana fastened their skilled garments of around their waists and placed their bow across their shoulders. Then, with Vishwamitra going immediately before them, they followed the sage through the clear, cool water of the zone. After some time, they sighted the Ganga shining in the late afternoon sun, appearing in the distance like a line of gold running across the landscape. Upon reaching the river bank, they broke their journey and prepared to rest for the night. After worshipping the river with libations of water and lighting the sacred fire, the boys sat before Vishwamitra and inquired, "O holy sage, we wish to hear of the origin of this great river, which arrived at the Himalayas from the heavens, flow across the flows across the earth, and it is hard course even though hell itself. How has this river come so early, and why does she spread here influenced through all the three worlds?" Moved by this question, Vishwamitra called to mind the glories of the Gangas and began to speak. See Appendix 1, the story of Ganga, that we will cover later. In a flowing and a beautiful Sanskrit verse, Vishwamitra narrates at length the history of the sacred river. When he was finished, the princess were wonderstruck, asking the sage again and again to continue speaking. The brothers listened at night as Vishwamitra recounted various other stories of the gods and demons. The following morning, they went towards the northeast, heading for Mithila. Gradually, the forest path gave away to road laid with stone that lead to the city. The forest opened to a field of crops. As they came closer to Mithila, they saw well-planned gardens and groups with seats and fountains. The sounds of wild animals were replaced with the clamors of people in the city. Shout of children and the rumbling of a horse-drawn chariot greeting them as they entered the gates of Mithila. Huge elephants swayed along majestically, with smile people waving from the howdah howdahs on their backs. Gazing about them, the travelers saw the golden domes of innumerable temples along with many mansions of a brilliant white stone. Along the roadside were shops displaying countless varieties of fruits, vegetables, and all kinds of sweet meats. Other vendor displaying rows of shining gems looking like number of rainbow. Everyone called out respectfully greeting as the party moved slowly past. As they went along the wide, smooth road, they were met by the king's ministers, who had already been informed of their arrival. Headed by Vishwamitra and the princess, the party was led along the main highway to Janaka's palace. People thronged the side of the road to gaze upon the famous sage and his two illustrious charges. As they looked upon the powerful princess, some of them guessed that they might be the son of Emperor Dasaratha. The people wondered what had brought the princess to Mithila. Why are they going to attempt to string the king's great bow? As Rama smiled at the people, they were filled with a desire to see this handsome, powerful princess with Sita hand. Janaka personally came out to greet them, accompanied by his priests and a counselor. He immediately fell at Vishwamitra's feet and had him brought into the palace, where he offered him and the two princesses golden seats. The king had water fetched for washing their feet and personally performed the ceremony. Once the formalities were complete, a meal was offered to the sage and the princess. As they sat on the floor on silk rose, ivory table were placed in front of them. Gold and silver dishes were faced containing choice food of every description. They ate heartily, and when they were finished, Janaka said to Vishwamitra, "Great indeed is my good fortune today, for I see before me your holy self. I am blessed by your presence. Tell me, who are these two boys accompanying you? They appear like two powerful tigers, and they rival the gods in beauty and grace. What bring you here to my house along with these boys equipped with weapons?" The king had waited until the travelers were rest and refreshed before making his inquiries. Vishwamitra told him all about the boys and how they had disposed of the Rakshasas in the forest. They had come now to see famous bow. Janaka was thrilled to hear that they were prince of Ayodhya. Nothing could be better than an alliance with the Dasaratha line. If only Ram could pass the test of the bow. At that point, Satananda Janaka head priest spoke to the princess. After welcoming them, he began to narrate the history of Vishwamitra. Satananda was himself a great ascetic. He knew Vishwamitra well, having previously spent time with him in his hermitage. Seeing the famous sage again, Satyananda felt inspired by affection to speak of his glories. Looking upon to the beautiful face of Rama and Lakshmana, who sat enraptured by his speech, the priest told the story of Vishwamitra, who had performed difficult asceticism for thousands of years. See appendix to the history of Vishwamitra that we will cover in the later. He told them how the sage had once been a great king, and after practicing tremendous austerities had been blessed by Brahma to become a powerful Rishi. When Satananda finished his astonishing tale, everyone gazed with awe to wait at Vishwamitra, who sat flanked by the princess, his mind absorbed in thought of the Supreme Lord. Janaka approached the effulgent Rishi and spoke to him with joined palms. I stand blessed by your appearance, O holy sage. This account of your many glories had filled my mind with wonder. Indeed, I could go on hearing it again and again, but dusk has not now fallen, and I beg your leave. Let us meet again in the morning, and it will be my very great delight to satisfy your every desire. Janaka, along with his minister and priest, circumambulated Vishwamitra in respect and then departed. After performing their evening rituals and prayers, Vishwamitra and the princess rested for the night in the king's palace. The following morning, Janaka again came before Vishwamitra. He bowed low before the sage and touched his feet, asking in a pleasing voice, "Please instruct me. What should I do? What I should do for you today, O sinless one? You are worthy in every way of receiving my service." Hearing these words from the virtuous and gentle king, Vishwamitra asked that they now be shown the bow. Janaka assented, but before taking them to see the board, he described its history. Long past, in a former age, the bow had belonged to Shiva. That deity had become angry with the other gods when they had denied him a share of a sacrificial offering made by the sages. Shiva had threatened them with the bow, saying, "I shall now serve your worshipable head from your bodies. Stand ready on the battlefield if you have any failure." But the gods relented and quickly worshipped the infuriated Shiva. They had more managed to appease him, where often he gave the bow to them. The famous bow was then given by the god to Janaka ancestor Devarata. After he had fought for them in the battle against the demons, it had since been kept in the king's family, being worshipped as if it were Shiva himself. Janaka continued speaking to the sage and the princess, who listened with great cu- curiosity. Curiosity, with great curiosity. Once I performing a sacrificial, once I performing a sacrifice to please the gods in order to get a worthy successor in my line, as the sacrificial ground was being prepared with a golden plowshare. A wonderful child appeared from out of the earth itself. This female child, who becomes known by the name of Sita, grew up in my palace as my daughter. Her beauty is matchless. I have raised her with love and will give her in marriage to whoever can show exceptional prowess. Various ruler and princess have approached me and sue for her hand. Seeing this king, I set a standard for winning Sita, saying, "Whoever can hold and string the mighty bow of Shiva will win this princess." Many proud kings thought they would easily win the bow. However, coming before that bow, then were soon of their failure and pride. They were hardly able to move the bow even slightly, as far, far less lift and string it. Angry at their failure, numerous kings together besieged Mithila for one full year. When my resources were exhausted, I prayed to the god for support. I then received from them a vast army equipped with every kind of weapon. That celestial army quickly dispersed those bellicose kings in all directions. Thus, this bow remains here, conquered and awaiting some truly powerful king. Janaka looked at the two royal brother King Rama's fame had reached him, and he felt sure that the prince would win his daughter's hand. As the king beheld Rama's beautiful feature, he, his powerful physique and noble bearing, he longed for the princess to pass the test and become his son-in-law. He stood before Vishwamitra with folded palms. "Come now, O sage, and bring these boys with you. If any string the bow, if any can string the bow, then the hand of the divine born Sita will be won." Janaka led them to the part of his great palace where the bow was kept. It was stored in an iron chest which was adorned with gold engraving and covered over with numerous flower garlands. 300 powerfully built men so have managed to move the chest to the center of the hall where it lay. Janaka turned towards Rama. "Here is the wonderful celestial bow. It has been kept and worshipped by the Janakas for many generations. Not even the gods, demons, yakas, Gandharvas, or Kinnaras can string it. How then could any ordinary man gaze now upon this bow? O Ram!" Janaka ordered that the chest be opened. As the lid was lifted, the brilliant bow was revealed. It spread a golden glow all around, constructed of pure horn. It was skillfully worked with gold and silver image of the pastime of the gods. Hundreds of golden bells and ornaments hung from the bow, which was stood with diamonds and other gems. Seeing the bow, the two princes grasped in appreciation. Ram bowed down in respect and then walked slowly around it. He looked towards Vishwamitra, who nodded slightly. Understanding Vishwamitra's indication, Rama stood with joined palm at the bow center. He turns to Janaka. "I wish to attempt your test. I shall now try to lift this heavenly bow to gauge its weight and strength." While being extolled by Vishwamitra and other sages who utter "Victory, victory," Rama placed his hand upon the bow. There was a complete silence in the hall. Janaka held his breath as Rama stood motionless. Vishwamitra, knowing the extent of Rama power, smiled slightly. In the balcony of the hall, Sita stood. She looked at Rama, feeling a natural attraction for the Rama, for the prince. Until then, she had never been interested in any of her suitors. Although the most powerful king from all around of the world had come there to the gentle Sita, they were all arrogant and overly proud of themselves. Sita was deeply religious. All her life, she had prayed that Vishnu might become her husband. As she watched Rama approach the bow, she felt her love for the Lord being awakened. Watch this Vishnu himself becoming absorbed in her loving sentiment. Sita felt anxiety. Would Rama string the bow and become her husband? She held the matrimonial garland with a trembling hand. Suddenly, Rama seized the bow by its middle part and raised it high above his head. A grasp of astonishment filled the hall. It was inconceivable. Rama tossed the bow slightly to gauge its weight, placing one end of a colossal bow on the ground. Rama then moved to the other end of the strung it. He pulled the string and bent the bow round it semicircle. It broke suddenly, and a sound like a crash of thunder reverberated around the hall. The earth shook as if there were an earthquake. Everyone was stunned and rendered senseless for some moment. Janaka was amazed. He turned to Vishwamitra. I have now witnessed Rama's strength. He achieved incredible, having required Rama as her husband. Sita will bring undying fame to my family. Janaka's eyes were filled with tears. Surely Rama was a divine personality. There could be no doubt. Till then, no king had been able to move the bow even slightly. Some could hardly even look upon it, but Rama had handled it as if it were a piece of bamboo. The king looked up to Sita in the balcony. She was filled with delight upon seeing Rama feet and her breast. Her breast heaved with excitement, awaiting her father's indication to come down. She stood surrounded by her many female attendants. Janaka turns to speak Rama, who stood peacefully, having replaced the broken bow in its chest. I shall now fulfill my pledge to give Sita a hand to whoever could string this bow. Sita is dearer to me than my own life, but I gladly offer her to you. Sita came down from the balcony with a garland of golden flower in her hand and stood by her father. She was resplendent in a silk saree of deep maroon, a necklace of pearls shining on her breast. As she walked, her golden ankles tinkled and her diamond earrings swung to and fro. Smiling gently, she shyly lifted her eyes a little and looked at Rama, who caught her glance. Both felt their heart moved by love. In that moment, their union was forged. Sita's father signaled and she went before Rama. She placed the garland around his neck, indicating her acceptance of him of her acceptance him as her husband. She blushed slightly and kept her eye down. Walking slowly, she went back to her father, who felt as if his heart might burst with happiness. The king wanted to perform the marriage ceremony as soon as possible. He asked for Vishwamitra permission, and when the sage agreed, the king arranged for a swift messenger to go Ajodhya to inform Dasharatha. The minister of Janaka left immediately and arrived at Ayodhya after 3 days. They quickly went to the palace and were ushered into the presence of Dasharatha, who appears to them like a powerful god. Put at ease by the emperor, beaming expression and gentle words of welcome, the minister politely told him of the event in Mithila. The, the empire was delighted to hear the submission of Janaka envoy Rama and Lakshmana were well. They had conquered over the demons, and more than that, Rama had now won the beautiful Sita for his bride. Dasharatha recalled how he had been contemplating the marriage of his son even as Vishwamitra had arrived at his palace. The sage must have been sent the providence by whose arrangement this union had surely been made. After consulting with his counselor, Dasharatha made up his mind to leave the next day for Mithila, taking with him his minister and preceded by a party of priests. Dasharatha went the next morning towards Mithila with his army marching close behind. They arrived after 5 days. Dasharatha approached Janaka, who graciously received the abundant riches brought as gifts. Janaka embarrassed the emperor, and the two old friends sat together discussing the wedding. Janaka told Dasharatha how Sita had appeared from the earth. He also told him of a prophecy he had heard. Once the celestial seer Narada informed me that Sita is Vishnu's eternal consort and that he would one day become her husband in the world. I thus revised a test which would only be possible for Vishnu to pass. Your son had now passed that difficult test and must therefore be Sita's eternal husband. Dasharatha was again astonished to hear Rama's divinity. He still found it hard to believe. Having raised Rama at his child, he looked at the son who stood before him modestly with bowed head and folded palms. Dasharatha was overpowered by love. His loving sentiment overcome any thought of Rama's divinity. The emperor looked again at Janaka and said, I approve this marriage in every way. Perform the ceremony under the guidance of learned Brahmana, O king. The success of a gift depends upon the way it is given. Therefore, be sure that all these necessary rites are properly observed without loss of time. Dasharatha wanted to ensure that marriage ceremony was performed carefully according to the scriptural codes. He did not want any ill fortune created by neglect of sacred rituals. Such empire would bright the marriage and create fortune difficulties for the couple. Janaka issued instruction to his ministers and then sat with Dasharatha in his great palace hall. Both of them listened of which Vaishishta recited Rama's family lineage. After hearing of Rama ancestry, beginning with the sun god, Janaka recited Sita's genealogy, describing his own ancestry, which began with Brahma. When Janaka finished, Vishwamitra spoke. I suggested that Sita's sister Urmila wed Rama's brother Lakshmana. The sage was the sage also advised that Janaka's brother Kusadhavas sorry Kusabhaja allow his two daughters to marry Bharata and Shatrugna. Then there could be one ceremony for all for marriage. Rising from his seat with joy, Janaka said, let it be so. Again and again he fell prostrate before Vishwamitra and said, I am ever your servant, who your words are worthy of my worship, and I stand commended by you. Let the wedding take place tomorrow, a day marked by favorable star. As the two kings sat talking together, the sun gradually set. Janaka took his leave from Dasharatha and departed for his personal quarter, flanked by his minister and 100 warriors. Thousands of golden oil lamps lit up the hall as the crowd of Brahmanas made their way out, all of them constantly uttering aspirations Vedic hymns. The following morning, Dasharatha rose early and performed the fast ritual for invoking good fortune. He had his four sons brought before him and then gave to Brahmanas priest 100,000 cows on behalf of each of them. The emperor also distributed gold and gems to the husband of Russia assembled in Mithila to witness the wedding. The four princes shaved their heads and dressed in a silk robe, putting a brilliant jeweled ornaments, surrounded by the four husbands, handsome and affluent youth. Dasharatha shone like a Brahma surrounded by the celestial guardian of the four quarters. The great pavilion had been erected for the ceremony. Its walls were constructed of marble and it was supported on numerous pillars studded with sparkling gems, fragrant and brightly colored flower garlands were draped everywhere and the air was filled with the scent of black ashen incense. Large stand constructed of mahogany inlaid with coral and pearl, pearl. Holding rows of golden seats surrounded the sacrificial area. Kings from all around the world, along with their minister, filled the stands, eager to see the wedding. The entire pavilion was crowded with jubilant people who cried out, all glory to Ram and Sita. Hundreds of elder Brahmins wear simply lion clothes with clean white threads hanging from their left shoulders was seated around the sacrificial arena. They recited the Vedic hymns continuously under the melodic rise and fall of their metrical chanting filled The pavilion. Musical instrument played while expert singer sang the princess of Ram and Sita. The whole assembly appears like an exuberant festival held in the heaven by the god. Dasharatha and his four sons approached the sacrificial fire which was tended by Vaishishta. When they were seated, the princess saw Sita and the other three princes entered the arena. The prince's mind were captivated by the beauty of their wives to be, adorned with shining silk garments, jewels, and gold ornaments. The princess appeared like four goddesses descended from the celestial realm. They sat down opposite their intended spouse, glancing down shyly, and Vaishishta immediately began the wedding ceremony. Janaka stepped forward, speaking in a voice choked with emotion. My dear Rama, I now give you to Sita, my own beloved daughter, to be your assistant in all your religious duty. She will always remain in exclusively devoted to you and will follow you like your own shadow. Take her hand in yours and accept her. I bless you both. Janaka took Rama's hand and placed it over Sita. Vasishtha sprinkled sanctified water over their clasped hand, signifying the confirmation of the gift of Sita. Holding Sita's hand, Rama led her slowly around the sacred fire. From the upper reach of the pavilion, the gods were heard to exclaim, "Excellent, bravo, bravo!" Celestial flower rained down upon Sita and Rama. The entire assembly of onlookers interrupted with a shout of joy. Both Dasharatha and Janaka looked with tearful eyes at the newly couple. Rama's complexion reassembled a celestial emirate contracted the pure white feature of Sita. They were both covered with golden flowers, petals, and their many jewels shone brilliantly as they walked hand in hand around the fire. Sita looked down in sadness while Rama smiled at the loudly cheering crowd in the pavilion. Each of Rama's three brothers, one after another, in order of seniority, took the hand of one of the other three princes. Lakshmana was united with Urmila, Bharata with Mandavi, and Dasharatha with Srutakriti. The three effulgent princes holding their brides and went around the sacred fire along with Janaka and the many sage. Cry, cries of happiness, carriage of happiness filled the pavilion while the god prayed there. Their celestial drums, behaves of Sarah danced and the Gandharvas sang. The sage recited Vedic text and the blast of a conch shell was heard everywhere. All of those present in assembly were lost in a ecstasy. The ceremony ended at a midday, and the king and the princess gradually retired to their tents, headed by the Sarata Janaka and the four newly married couple. The following day, Vishwamitra, after taking permission from both Dasharatha and Janaka, left for the northern Himalayan range. His mind intent on the performance of astrology. Janaka bestowed upon his daughter a dowry consisting of hundreds of thousands of cows and an equal number of elephant, horses, chariots, and foot soldiers. The king, whose wealth was vir- virtually virtually unlimited, gave away millions of pieces of silken and cotton textile, tens of thousands of hand woven carpets, heap of gold, silver, and jewels, and hundreds of richly adorned made for each of the bride. After a few days, Dasharatha left for Ayodhya, proceeding at the head of a large army as the king, surrounded by his son and the host of sage, was traveling along the broad road that led to Ayodhya. He suddenly saw a strange woman, but begins to cry out fearfully and swoop low over their heads. Witness this foreboding sign, Dasharatha heart quivering and his mind became fearful. The king asked Vasishtha if he knew the cause of the women's. This sign portend some grave danger, replied the Rishi. But here are group of deer crossing our path from left to right, indicating our deliverance from that danger. You should not fear. If he fear she tempest bow up, the sun was enveloped in darkness and the sky became black. Trees crashed to the ground and the earth hook. The dear dreadful dust storms whirled around the travelers, confounding the their sense. They were rendered virtually unconscious. Suddenly, from out of darkness appears the terrible sage Parshurama. He was dressed in tiger skin and had matted locked coiled at the crown of his head. Dasratha and his followers immediately recognized him. Although a Brahmana Purushottama was famous for his prowess as a fighter, in former age he had handily overcome the world warriors, annihilating them by the millions. The sage had become enraged when his father was killed by warriors king, and he waked a woeful vengeance. He had ranged the globe, massacring the entire warrior class. He now stood before Dasharatha holding a pestle axe in one hand and in other hand a fierce arrow with a resembled a stick of lightning. He was as tall two men and he had upon his shoulder a great bow, appearing irresistible as the fire of universal destruction. He blocked the path like a impassable mountain. The sage The sages in the Sarata party quickly gathered together. They took water to wash Purushottama feet and hand and offering him gently word of welcome. Accepting the honor offered by the sages, Purushottama looked at Rama and said in a grave voice, "O Rama, I have heard of your strength. By breaking Shiva bow, you have performed an incredible feat. How can I, who has formed a great enmity with all the warriors, tolerate hearing of such prowess existing in a king? I have here another sacred bow that of Vishnu. Let us see your power now. Fit this celestial arrow upon this bow and simply draw it full length. If you are able to accomplish this task, then I shall challenge you to single combat. When you stand on the battlefield and are swept away by the force of the weapons, you shall earn undying fame. Dasharatha threw off his hand in horror, knowing well of Purushottama's power. He feared for Rama's life. He approached the sage with joined palms and entreated him to spare him. Rama, praying no heed at all to the king. Purushottama continued to speak only Rama. Both the bow broken by you and this one here were constructed by the atheistic architect of the gods, Vishwakarma. The one you surrender firmly belongs to Shiva. However, this one here was Vishnu property. It is thus more powerful than the one you broke, for Vishnu is always Shiva superior. Purushottama took the bow from the soldier with the furrowed brows. He gazed at Rama with bloodshot eyes, not immediately recognized the prince's divine identity. The bow was being passed drawn by the Vishnu to my ancestor and finally to me. Now I now offer to you, O Rama, consider your sacred duty as the warrior to always accept a challenge. Exhibited now the strength of your arms. Purushottama held out the enormous bow. Rama, smiling slightly, stepped forward. I have heard of your tremendous feat in fighting and killing all the world warriors 21 times. You have fully avenged your father with this commendable action. Even as a child Rama, I been told the story of Purushotama. Even as a child Rama had been told the story of Purushottama. So many kings killed by the sage had become debauched, and it was by divine arrangement that they had been annihilated. As a sage, Purushottam had performed much asceticism and he had finally been personally empowered by Vishnu himself by dint of Vishnu's own desire and powers. Purushottam had been able to exterminate the warrior class. Now Vishnu appears as Rama again stood before the sage. He continued to speak. You are a Brahmin sage and are therefore worthy of my worship. However, since you despise me, seeing me to belong to the warrior class, I shall now display to you my personal powers. Rama seized the bow along with the blast arrow with Parshurama, and he strung the bow in an instant and drew the arrow back into his ear. Looked angrily at Purushottama, he asked, where shall I discharge this deadly shaft? O sage, as you are my superior, I dare not aim it at you. Host of a god had assembled in the sky, seeing the celestial bow drawn in anger by Rama and fearing that he may destroy the human. Then they cried out, Vishnu, save us, save us. Rama, standing with a bow blazed as brilliant as the sun, and Purushottama fell back in astonishment. He felt his own power completely spliced by Rama, suddenly realizing Rama's identity. The sage spoke in flattering tone. You appear invisible and I can understand that you must surely be with the impossible Vishnu himself. I accept defeat, but am not ashamed. You, as you are indeed the Lord of all the world. Purushottama recalled how Vishnu had long ago said he would come again to take back the divine energy he had given the sage given to the sage. The warrior sage folded his palms and said, O Rama, O powerful one, you have already divested, divested me of my power and my pride. Please release this arrow upon my desire for heavenly pleasure and thereby burn them all to ashes. I wish only to serve you with my material aspiration destroyed by you. I shall be fit to become your eternal servant. This is my deepest desire. Purushottama bowed low before uh, Rama, who then fired the fearful shaft. The sage immediately vanished along with the arrow. Then Varuna, the god of the waters, appeared and Rama gave him the celestial bow to keep on behalf of God. The exchange between Rama and the sage was heard and understood only by Vasishtha and few other spiritual powerful Brahmins. The king and the others present had been wholly confounded by the event that had occurred. They were amazed and relieved to see that Rama had somehow approached the god. Everything again became calm and the party resumed their journey, soon approaching Ayodhya. Word had already reached Ayodhya of the approach of the Dasharatha party. Thousands of Brahmins and citizens had come some miles out of the city to greet them. They stood along the wide road through rice grain and fresh green leaf in front of the Dasharatha seated abroad his chariot. The empire and his son waved at the people. They moved slowly through the crowd and entered the city in the state. It was decorated with flag and fresh stone and strewn all over with flowers. Trumped fanfare sounded and Jewish people thronged along around the king's party as it went slowly along the main thoroughfare. Dasharatha entered his own white marble palace, which resembled Mount Himbite. He was greeted by his wife, who had organized a ceremonious reception for their son and new daughters-in-law. After the greeting of a prince and princess went to their respectable palace and began to enjoy life in Ayodhya exactly like gods in heaven. After a few days, Dasharatha asked Bharata and Shatrugna to go to the kingdom of father-in-law Kusadhvaj, Kusadhvaja, who himself had no son. The emperor instructed of the princess to assist Kusadhvaja in the affair of state, along with their wife and a large army. Bharata and Shatrugna therefore soon left the capital and went to Rajagriha, where Kusadhvaja lived. So this is how Rama marriage to Queen Sita and sent back to Ayodhya. Jai Jagannath, Jai Shri Krishna. If you are more interested on this story, please like this video, share to your friend for for this beautiful journey of Ramayana. Jai Jagannath, Jai Shri Ram.